But to your point, Jeff, and what I wanted to ask you about in that is it does take a toll on your identity when you get into that place that's nothing like who you thought you would be when you
Mhm.
graduate. Or, for my client, it's someone who's got 20 years of experience and now is facing
Right.
that same challenge. So can you just describe, and I love, like, it's not a transaction, it's a transformation. What is the early steps, or as a coach, how do you help somebody to shift that identity that, hey, just because you're at a gas station now doesn't
Mhm.
mean that's all of who you are, or that this you're doomed, your destiny is is ruined. Like, what is that like to shift and transform your mindset?
I think it's this process of really identifying who you're trying to become and where you're trying to get to. So you're totally right. Like he was in this space where he had taken an identity hit because he's a solid engineer, had gone through some good educational experiences and done a lot of like side projects and was one of those people who was really involved and connected and engaged and learning and growing and things like that. But here he was doing this sort
Yeah.
of work
Boom.
and taking a hit. He's like, is this all there is? Is this all I'm good for a while? That's the mindset he was in there for a while. But he started to let go of this identity he'd started to take on and start
Yeah.
to reignite almost the identity that he had as an ambitious engineer of what he wanted to do and the types of work that he wanted to be involved in and the impact that he wanted to have. And he started to work on and other side projects, started building portfolios, started sharing and having more conversations. And he got some other mentors and started networking and having informational interviews and things. And sort of instead of just like, hey, I'm just like hanging out in the gas station every day. And that's where he was at for a while. Hey, I'm someone who I can talk to and grow and connect with people in different ways. And he was designing things, he was building stuff, and he rekindled that identity
Yeah.
of who he was trying to become, operating from that's the person who he was. And then the results came.
I
It
love that.
it, it starts, taking that, and I know you're big on having courage and taking big actions and things like that
Absolutely.
is something that's big on you. And I say the same thing, operating from like, who am I trying to become? How do I need to operate today to be that person really?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. That's super cool.
seeing that process over time.
And honestly, Jeff, just to hammer the point home, like, this is why partnering with a guide, a coach, someone who can come alongside and help you, because it's really tough alone
Yeah.
in that
Yeah.
place where you are in that false identity, that broken identity that's not who you want to be,
Mm-hmm.
to just self-medicate your way back to who you can become. And
Mm-hmm.
I see it over and over again, especially engineers. We have a lot of ego. I'll speak for myself. I have a lot of ego. I did as an
Yeah.
engineer. My coach continues to humble me around that.
Yeah. I had another client, experienced engineer, was in the military for a long time and then worked in various technological industries. He was at this place, and the way that he described it to me, he's like, I want to find my happy place in my career. And I don't know what that is, but I want to figure that out. And so he was trying to find clarity around like, what did that look like? And how do I operate here? And he thought, right, that would probably mean a change in his environment, a different job. Okay. Because he
Okay.
wasn't happy where he was at the time. He was in a relatively new job, 8 or 9 months at the time when we first started chatting. So he thought that, okay, this job isn't really working out. It's going to be something different. But as we started working together, he realized that it wasn't as much about the environment that he was in as much about who he was in that environment.
Ooh.
So his mindsets, how he approached the work that he did and how he approached the people and the relationships he was working with was some of the things that were keeping him unhappy at the time.
I can imagine, the engineering leader who's listening right now probably can think of multiple things in their environment that consciously or subconsciously we believe, they
Mm-hmm.
believe, if that changes, then I will feel happier, more fulfilled, less stress, whatever. It's really easy to fall into that trap of, I just need to change all the external things that I see in my environment
Right.
so that
Yeah.
I can feel this way. But what you're saying is, for this client, and maybe the challenge to me and to the listener here is like, is it possible that how I'm showing up in that environment, who I'm being in that environment, is the actual root of the unsatisfying
Yeah.
feeling?
And so some of that was actually changing his beliefs about himself because he had experiences in his life and his career where he'd felt burned. Okay.
Mm,
And so he was afraid of really putting himself out there in different ways and taking on some risks and things. Because he's like, hey, if I do that, I'm probably going to get burned again. Or he
yeah.
felt like he didn't have a lot of value to give. These are some of the things that he was believing about himself, which then reinforces the idea that I'm not doing great work and I'm not getting the feedback and I'm not getting the progression that I want. That's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So again, shifting his mindset to who he wanted to be, who he wanted to become, how he was going to operate, changed how he then interacted with people. He started finding one of the things that he said was really interesting or really impactful for him that I work with people a lot is this idea of finding a genius zone. A genius zone is this idea of like, where do you do your best work? What are the combinations of skills or experiences or interests and things that combine in a unique way that makes you uniquely different? But he recognized that he really struggled when a project or technology or something was in kind of maintenance mode. And he's just sort of like in there, keeping things running and responding to quality issues and
Sure,
stuff
sure.
like that, right? Where he looked back on his experiences in the past, recognized where he was really engaged, where he was really doing great work and was delivering excellent value, was when these were greenfield, ambiguous new projects. And he was able to build the new processes, the business process and the technology processes to help that really start well from the beginning. He hadn't recognized that before, which then meant that he could look for opportunities in the business, in his work, to do more of that work and raise his hand when he saw those opportunities to engage in some of those things. And then, by the way, a few months later, after he had changed his approach and he was much happier, even in the work that he was doing then he had another opportunity with another company he's even more excited about. And now he's thriving
Just
even
crushing it.
more. So he did end up changing his environment, but he changed himself first and then was able to thrive in that new environment even more.